Well, welcome to Materia Medica Mondays with me, your host, instructor, and white-haired herbalist, Stephanie Georgiev. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you've been listening for this wonderful month of June, you know that during this wonderful month of June, I'm offering a special mini course on everything you would ever want to know about skin health and wellness and how to facilitate that with nutrition, supplements, and of course, botanical medicine. So make sure to check out the links in the program notes. I have other courses available, so just explore and see what calls out to you. But the skin health course is only good during the month of June. And then it will go back into the larger course, which is called Living Pharmacy from Seed to Body to Soul. And if you want this wonderful segment on skin health, you will need to take the full course, which is totally worth your time. Totally. So continuing our exploration during this month, we are talking about plants that are good for skin health. And for this episode, we're going to look at chickweed. And chickweed, I think, is really interesting plant. And it's really good both internally and externally for skin health. Chickweed is universally thought of as a weed, hence the name. And it's definitely thought of as a weed by conventional gardeners, farmers, and lawn enthusiasts. In fact, it's considered one of the most successful and persistent agricultural weeds in the world. And if you're like me, which I hope you are in this respect, I'm always just staring at plants. And I'll be walking anywhere in cities, you name it. And I've always got my head and my nose and everything looking for plants. And something that I find endlessly fascinating and also inspiring, particularly in urban environments, is how every little crack in sidewalks and roads, there's growing something. And it's usually a dandelion and various forms of what we would call weeds. But it shows that how strong and resilient nature is. And so that's what I find most interesting. Now, from an ethnobotanical and traditional perspective, chickweed is not considered a weed. It's a nutrient-dense spring green, and it's a really highly valued remedy, particularly topically. Now, the interesting dual reputation as an annoying garden pest is basically showing how valuable this plant is when you consider how it grows and adapt. To a conventional farmer, landscaper, etc., chickweed is a noxious, invasive plant. And the reason why it's considered noxious and invasive is because it has such incredible survival strategies. Chickweed seeds germinate in autumn, and a lot of other plants they either die off or they go dormant in the winter, but chickweed actually grows slowly through the cold months. And also, a single humble chickweed plant can produce anywhere from 2,000 to 15,000 seeds. Now, these statistics are very interesting in many ways when you do research, and it'll say, well, blah, blah. So I want to know who counted these seeds. But anyways, according to the research, it grows up to 15,000 seeds. And these seeds remain viable, buried deep in the soil, and they can be there and be viable for up to 10 years. And they basically wait for the ground to be disturbed so they can burst into life. And this plant grows low to the ground, and its fragile stems root easily at the nodes, which are joints, and wherever they touch damp soil. And if a garden hoes a patch of chickweed but leaves a broken stem, if it touches soil, it will simply reroot itself and keep growing. So you can see my inspiration, especially if you've run around the block a few times when you get older. These plants are very inspiring when life throws you some challenges. Now, herbalists see chickweed is as a wonderful herb that stands out because it's both effective internally and externally. Now, unlike comfrey, chickweed is entirely non-toxic. It's very safe, and it's even edible. And in traditional Western herbalism, the core energetic gesture is cooling and moistening, and it acts kind of like a fire extinguisher, particularly for hot, dry, itchy, and highly irritated skin states. Now, what's really lovely about this, and it's so funny to me, the common name is kind of ugh. It's basically the common name is chickweed because apparently chickens will eat it. But the Latin binomial is just delightful. And I always, when I see these lovely Latin binomial names for plants, I always thought, well, these would be great names for race horses. But the Latin binomial is called Stellaria media. And the why it's called this is the word stellaria comes directly from the word stella, meaning star. And this basically is the name because of the flowers of this plant. They do look like little stars. They look like open daisy star bursts. It's very sweet. And if you look at a patch of chickweed in bloom, it looks like a constellation of miniature white stars scattered across the green ground. And each one of the flowers only has 5 petals, but it's just darling, I think it is. And then it also means little star, and media is basically for the word small. So you have a small little star, and that's why it's called Stellaria media. Chickweed is in the Caryophyllaceae family, which is also known as the pink or carnation. It's considered a cosmopolitan species because it's basically everywhere. It's native to Europe, North Africa, and Western Asia, but it is successfully naturalized in every temperate and subpolar agricultural zone across the globe. It does love moisture. It's a shade-tolerant plant. It doesn't like heat, and it likes loose, highly fertile soils. And it's an indicator for healthy, nutrient-rich garden loam. So if you've got chickweed growing, you've got great soil. And it's very opportunistic. It spreads everywhere. And it grows well in what are called disturbed soils. So you might have some, stuff, some patch of dirt somewhere, but when you start digging it up, this will come out. And as they said, these seeds can last for up to 10 years. Because chickweed is such an abundant and wild volunteer on nearly every continent, it's not a medicinal plant that requires dedicated monoculture farming operations like other types of plants. Instead, The global commercial supply chain relies on structured wild crafting and small to mid-scale organic farms. And the number one producer of commercial supplier of organic chickweed for the global herbal medicine market is in the United States, particularly concentrated in the Pacific Northwest and Oregon and Washington, and part of the Midwest, and the wonderful companies, the Mountain Rose Herbs or Pacific Botanicals. These are the farms that tend to partner with these producers and product companies. Now, in Eastern and Central Europe, Poland, Hungary, Germany, and Bulgaria are the leading regional producers of bulk dried chickweed for the European nutraceutical and cosmetic industries. And what's really interesting is there is a wild crafting infrastructure in this region. And it's an organized network of rural wild crafters who gather the fresh herb from clean, chemically free agricultural margins and forest edges. And what these wild crafters do is they bring the plant to central processing centers to be carefully shade dried and immediately processed into liquid extracts. And when I was living in Bulgaria as well as in Albania, these wild markets or these natural markets, they often call them green markets. I always called them these forest people, the old forest sages would descend from the mountaintops and they would bring these bunches of fresh herbs, and it was just amazing. And I was sort of a novelty because obviously I'm an American. I look like an American. I sound like an American, even when I'm trying desperately to speak the local language. And they just thought I was really interesting that I had any interest in these big, bunches of herbs that they would tie together with strips of torn up t-shirts. And I thought it was a gold mine. But there are also, in addition to this, there are domestic artisan networks because chickweed loses its therapeutic efficacy rapidly if you dry it. There's a lot of global production that occurs at a hyper local level. And they just make things into fresh juice or freeze-dried powders or fresh oil infusions and things like that. Now, what I can also say is this is one of the best herbs for the home kitchen. So, if you want to dedicate part of your garden or a box to growing this, it's really a wonderful thing to do this. And it grows rapidly. It's, if you screw up, it doesn't care. Because it's a tender, succulent green, it doesn't really require any specialized lab equipment to, grow at home. And we can see through these networks throughout Eastern Europe, it's a wonderful thing to grow in your own home for your own use. You sow the seeds in autumn. You can sow it in late summer. You can do all kinds of things, and it will grow. And it's also wonderful to grow for partial shade. If you have limited space, sometimes it's always this wonderful challenge to find a place to grow like tomatoes or something because the garden needs full sun. But this is a wonderful plant to grow like up against a wall that gets partial shade, etc. And you don't want to pull up the roots if you want a continuous harvest. And you just use your kitchen shears to haircut the top 2-3 inches And then you can do all sorts of things with it. You can make infused oils. If you want to do an infused oil, you need to lay it out, wash it and lay it out on a towel or something. And I say do it on a bath towel, a clean bath towel, and let it dry overnight, like literally for 24 hours. And then you can chop it up and put it in whatever type of carrier oil you want. And usually with the homemade infused oils, it needs about 2 weeks. So you'll put it in a glass jar, fill it up with whatever type of oil you want. I highly suggest grapeseed oil. I highly suggest jojoba or almond oil. You can obviously use olive oil if you want to smell like a salad. And then you put it in a dark cupboard and you basically shake it up every day for a couple weeks, and then you strain out the plant material, put it in your compost heap, and then you have this wonderful topical oil. You can also chop it up fresh and put it in some silicone ice cube trays. And you can buy stuff like this. I always say this is for totally lazy humans, but in different specialty markets and even regular grocery store markets, they'll sell these frozen trays of herbal stuff, either dill or parsley or things like that. And I think that's wonderful because you don't want to just throw this stuff away. But you can do this with chickweed and you just freeze it up into these silicone trays, and then you can pop them out and put them in, some sort of container and keep it in your freezer. And then you can use it as will, however you want. Now, chickweed is hands down the anti-itch master. It's really good at stopping stubborn itching and to cool down red inflamed tissue. And this is because it's very rich in something called triterpenoid saponins. And you can also use this as a fresh poultice. So you can pick it out of your garden and just kind of crush it and put it on whatever's itching. But you can also use it in infused oil or cream. And what these saponins do is they act like a mild natural soap, and they break up cellular debris and help other soothing compounds penetrate the skin. So it's very, very healing. It also contains high levels of anti-inflammatory flavonoids like rutin and phytosterols, which actively downgrade local inflammatory processes. So it reduces redness and it reduces swelling. It's wonderful for hot, dry eczema and psoriasis. It's great on insect bites, stings, and rashes. And internally, it's really good and extremely safe. And it's a nutrient-dense alternative. We learned that word in one of our other skin herb Materia Medica Mondays, and this is a blood purifier and lymphatic, and it's also a mild diuretic, and it just helps clear out internal junk, gets it out of there so it doesn't have to come through the skin. It's also really high in nutrients. It's high in vitamin C, vitamin A, bioflavonoids, calcium, magnesium, and potassium. And these nutrients help build cellular turnover and collagen defense from within the body. It also is very cooling to what we call systemic heat. And as I was saying before, sometimes summer aggravates certain skin conditions. And if you're quote unquote a hot person, the heat makes it worse. And this will cool it down. And hot skin things are like rashes and welts and certain other skin conditions. And by stimulating the kidneys, it cools the digestive tract, and it's just really good for that. It's very nutritious. It's incredibly nutritious, and it's been eaten across Europe, Asia, and North America. Is really good in spring salad greens. And like I said, when I was in Albania, I would go to the open air markets, and literally you would get this huge bunch of herbs that was like 12 and a half inches in diameter, and it was tied with a piece of torn t-shirt material or rope or string, something like that. And I would buy those and then I would take it home. And unfortunately, where I was living, the water was not well filtered, let's put it that way. And so I would have to go through this massive production thing where I would filter the water and then I would boil it and I had to cool it down and all. So I always had all these big vats of purified water so that I could clean these things, which took a lot of effort because they were wildcrafted. So they were full of, bugs and dirt and all sorts of things. But when I would finish it, then it was like, I had this wonderful salad, or I would make green soups and all kinds of things. But chickweed is delicious. It tastes a lot like fresh sugar snap peas, young spinach. They're juicy and succulent. It's been traditionally in fresh spring salads. It's wonderful as a cooked in soups. Traditionally, particularly in the British Isles, it was sautéed in butter. It would be thrown into hot broths at the last minute because if you cook the heck out of it, you ruin the nutrition. So you just want to cook just a little bit. And the global tradition spans the globe. And it's often used in spring tonics, mainly because it's so high in all of those vitamins, calcium, magnesium, potassium. And because it's rich in mucilage and saponins, it's really good in spring tonics as a demulcent cleanse. So it stimulates the liver, it stimulates the lymph system, it just kind of helps the body get rid of stuff. And because it has this diuretic property, it gets rid of waste products and then it helps your body urinate everything out. So it's really, really good. It's a wonderful plant. And so eating it internally is going to help your skin, and then using it topically is going to help your skin. So this is Stephanie Georgiev saying thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me. I hope you're finding this information useful. If you want a deeper dive into skin health with natural methods such as nutrition, supplements, and botanical medicine, make sure to check out the program notes for the Living Pharmacy mini course in skin health. So until our next episode, be well.